power, there's basically two considerations. One consideration is stationary power, anything that's a stationary power source, or anything that's a mobile power. Car is mobile, wagon, truck, anything that moves, a tractor. We're going to get into that in just a second. So, but in thinking of what is mobile and what is stationary, if it's mobile, you have to carry your fuel with you. Okay, so those are things that we'll be looking at. Stationary, you don't need it. You can just have a pile of whatever or a tank of it. Next slide. Source of mobile power, it could be a wood gasifier. There's a picture up there of a tractor that was run in World War II that it has a gasifier, wood gasifier on it. So they're pulling the gas as they were gasifying the wood and putting it into the carburetor, and they're running that tractor off of the gas, the butanol that was coming off the wood. Then we also have biodiesel batteries, hydrogen, steam. So that's mobile. The next one. So go ahead.
Now, in the case of a disaster or an occurrence where you can't stay where you're at, wouldn't it be good that you could take your energy producing system with you? Wouldn't it be good you could back up your truck, put it on your hitch, disconnect the electrical leads, throw the breaker, and in 5 minutes, it's folded up and ready to go wherever you go? We have those already. That is close to 100% incentivized, that you can have parked in your backyard or at your place of business or at your place of worship even. It's time to think about those things you don't think about.
Okay. Next slide is sources of stationary power. Again, with gasifier, you can use that to actually you can use it to run your generator. So that's, or you can use biodiesel generator or batteries, hydrogen generator, solar panels, wind turbine, etc. So just the fact that there's mobile, stationary, that's really the whole point of these two slides. Could we do something? Could we just anybody feel like standing and stretching just for a second? I do. Oh, I'm already standing, but I'm going to stretch. Anybody want to do that? Sometimes these talks go a little bit long, and it's okay to stretch. You want to stretch, too?
Yeah, I'll stretch. One of the things I want you to think about is, does renewable energy or energy sources, will it withstand small arms fire? Is your system designed so that if you're in such an area that it could take small arms fire and still produce your energy? Do you have those? Does your system have that capability? Did you know that was available? No? It is available. And it's all about the products that you buy, whether it's one or the other, to withstand those kinds of things. So if you're interested in that kind of material, those are called thin film. Please write that down. Thin film material. We did that for space because we'd have micrometeorites that would hit the solar panels in space and tear it up. And the way solar modules are designed, if you hit one, the whole module will go out. Well, then they put internal shunts in. And so you'd lose a string of that, but it still lowered the efficiency. But in thin film material, if you'd only lose that active area that actually was impacted. So thin film has its advantages, crystalline has its advantages, polycrystalline material has its advantages, like wind has its, hydro has it. So, and we can get into that a little bit more later. What is available to purchase?
Next slide.
What is available to purchase?
Now, we're not going to hit the gamut of all kinds of things. We're just going to take you down one road just to give you an example. Let me explain the picture first. In case you can't see the picture there, you have a roof of a house that has photovoltaics on it. You also have on the side by where the palm trees are, you have the on-grid power coming in from that transformer. So the transformer comes into your meter. You have, so just, I'm going to stop you there at the meter, then you have the photovoltaics coming down to your inverter, and then there's a box in the middle, basically, that feeds into, well, the house is fed in through the meter. But anyway, just to give you a visual of just something.
This is called a line-tied PV system. Line-tied PV system.
Or photovoltaic.
Photovoltaic actually means light electricity. Light electricity. This line-tied system, it's a single stacked, meaning when they invert the signal, they're just inverting it at one time. You can double and triple stack and quadruple stack if you want to get 220 to run like drills and motors and things of that nature, or charge electric vehicles. So you would double stack your inverter being on the right-hand side of that. The meter that you see there is a net meter. A net meter goes both forward and backwards. Did you hear the story about 12 years ago, about 12 years ago, when Al Gore went and put solar on his house and they had a $12,000 electric bill? The person who installed it didn't put a net meter on. So instead of the meter running backwards, it ran forward fast. Also, we're going to talk about the different types of material. This is why you just can't let anybody come up and say, I can do this, do this. This is a crystalline system. Looks like it is a polycrystalline system. That means this material is slightly sensitive to the negative, bless you, when it comes to higher temperatures. So the hotter it gets, the less efficient it becomes. Also, it is a string inverter, meaning if any part is shaded, it will shunt the rest of that string so that your electricity production is lower, even though you've got sun shining on 99.9% of your module or your array. This is inverting at about a 0.77 efficiency from the modules being produced DC to AC. Because anytime you invert energy, it's going to cost you something. So these systems are about 0.77. Have I ever talked about changing the quality of life or giving up air conditioning or those things? I haven't talked about that. It's all about how you size up your systems for what it is you need. All about sizing up your systems for what it is you need. Now, if you want something that will sustain you during power outage, it's called a battery backup system. So your inverter would be slightly different. This inverter sees 60 hertz plus or minus 2 coming in from the grid. Whenever it sees a difference than that 60 hertz plus or minus 2 hertz, it automatically opens and your array does not produce. Wow. It's not giving you power when you need power the most. So if you want power to be continuous, you would want a battery backup system where your inverter would then go to a set or bank of batteries. Your batteries last from 5 to 7 years typically. Now, there are ways to get batteries to last longer. Technology's come a longer way, but it's more expensive. But again, we want to show you how to do this where it's close to being 100% incentivized. So are you ready for the money part?
Yeah, I'd like to
stop
just,
me?
well, I'm going to stop on this slide for just a little bit. Because we're using terms we're not sure if they mean anything to some people. Net metering, I'll just give you an example. If anyone is here in Missouri that would like some photovoltaics, some solar panels on your roof, eventually you're going to have to get, if you're working with KCP&L, so they're really their power source, and that's the power that's coming in off the street. Okay, so that's really their power source, and using the photovoltaics, you're going to need to work with them so that they can tie you into the grid, so to speak, And that's called, and the process for doing that is a net metering. There is an application process that you have to go through. So the net metering, even though we're using because remember, we're talking about on-grid, off-grid versus and the style and the lifestyles. So we're not assuming on this slide, we're not assuming that you're going to be out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, we're assuming that you're in the power grid area, that you're using some of that power. So the net metering is the relationship then that you have with your power provider. So then we said, okay, what is the most basic system there? Number one is the most basic system. So you basically are taking power off the grid and you are co-generating your use of power using photovoltaics or panels on your house. Now, you could use other ways. You could use wind, so it doesn't have to be power panels. It could be wind, or it could be some other sources. Now, number two up there is then net metering, and co-generating, but now you're using a hybrid system, some other source to feed up into it. It could be a power generator. So then you have the power that's coming in from the grid, you have photovoltaics, and then you also have a generator. So you try to basically redundancy and make sure you have plenty of power. And some people say that's great, but I think I may have a need for continuous power. Okay, then you may want to hook up some batteries there. So that's what number three is about. So we're just trying to tell you that there's flexibility in how you get power. Tying into the grid, so you're using some of that power, using some photovoltaics, you're using wind, you're using a generator, you're using batteries, and you can connect them all together. Number five, we say, okay, let's go a step further. Let's just say that now we have an electric vehicle charging system. It's on your garage, you can plug in a car. And then you say, but I want more flexibility than that. Okay, well, let's make the whole thing mobile. So that you can quick disconnect it, go down the road, and you plug in someplace else. Did I hit that correctly?
I think you did a real good job.
Okay.
And now it's time to talk about the money.
Okay.
Everybody want to talk about the money. Count the money. Count the money. And it's simple. The simple formula is this. For those of you who are in Kansas City area on the Missouri side, write down 30%.
30% is what?
30% will be your utility rebate that you're getting from the utility company. Oh, and by the way, before I get further, for those of you who are off-grid, we can talk about those incentives also, because they're two different sets, both on-grid and off-grid. So on-grid in Kansas City, you're at 30% with your utility rebate. That 30% is set off of our pricing structure. So I want to use a price structure of, you know what, put down $4.37 a watt, right? $4.37 a watt. Then you write down, you're going to take $2 a watt off for your rebates. Then you get an ITC tax grant that we paid into of 30% tax cash back from the IRS. So that's $1.30. What's 30% of 437? $1.30. Then you get what's called 100% bonus depreciation.
Yeah. Thank you for the humor. We really appreciate that.
So your bonus depreciation comes in your tax bracket, which you can monetize by selling to those who are in a higher tax bracket at 30%. So 30% of that is how much? Of the 100% bonus depreciation. What do those add up to be? What did you get? Oh, and how much did it cost? So that means I get to cut you a check back after putting this on your system? You're available Monday? Did you all know that all of these things were there? So you always want to double and triple check. And, oh, and by the way, this model is available in many places nationwide. So if you want Texas, you want Michigan, you want California, there's a lot of different places that have these same incentives.
What states don't have them that you know of?
It changes on a regular basis, and it's going to be on a first-come, first-served basis for those who want to take advantage of those incentives. Because when they go, they're gone. And by the way, they've been here for a long time. These incentives have been here for the last year and a half. So in Missouri, Kansas City Power will allow you to put out, yes, sir. Mm-hmm. 30. Yes. No. Rebate is $2 total. You get, yes.
It's not a percentage, it's just...
Not a percentage. It's $1 fixed per watt. So it's $2 per watt, and then $1, what is it, $1.30 per watt, and then there's another $1.30 per watt. So, pardon? That is, one is your ITC, write that down, ITC tax grant, 1603 under the IRS code. It's called the ITC tax grant, 1603. Any of you looking that up on the internet? Have you found it?
Bonus depreciation is 30% of the cost,
Yes,
or 30% what you produce
30% of your cost.
of your cost. And so when your costs are paid back,
Yes, this is a one-time.
30% bonus depreciation, that means bonus depreciation plus 30%?
No,
Total 30%.
no, your bonus depreciation is 100% of the cost of the system,
You take it the first year?
instead of taking it out over 5 years.
So you take 100%
Huh?
depreciation the first year.
I'm sorry, say
Yes.
that?
That's regardless of how much you produce. That's just,
It's a,
take that as a tax credit or a
Yes.
tax deduction.
You have to get with your accountant and your,
When you're saying 30%, you're assuming kind of a deduction, right?
yes, yes.
it's the same way that you would handle depreciation? Okay. Yes, it is.
Okay, one is a credit, and the other one is a depreciation that they give you credit for. So you have two different items. 100% bonus depreciation is your tax credit, and then you get a check or a tax credit that you're able to double dip on till December 31st, 2011.
We didn't write it down, we're really sorry about that. What was the question?
If you want to find out more, see David or Ed, and get with them and let them explain to you what is available.
David, raise your hand. Thank you, David. That's David. David's right there. Do it again. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any states that don't participate in this? Because I'm in the Carolinas, I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, you're close to my own home. I actually have land on my mother's side that was given us from the time of slavery down in South Carolina, just off of 77 there, by Winsboro. And North Carolina does, you're talking about Duke Power. Now, that's going to be a little bit different because you can get, what is Duke offering? Duke is offering performance-based incentives off of what you produce. So each state, each area is different. Do you want to find out what you have in your state? You go to the website called Desire, D-S-I-R-E. D-S-I-R-E. I think it's .org.
Or .gov, no.
That gives you a list of all the incentives.
If you just write the acronym down on Google, it'll give you sort of a list of, what to look for. Some of them are .gov, some of them are .org.
Did you find the desired?
We don't know
find that
we
yet?
don't know if anybody's looking it up.
I'm giving you a lot of information in a short period of time, ain't I?
This subject is, I know we're spending 2 hours, on this topic, and we talked earlier about the fact that the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And even though I've been in the industry for 30 years in starting businesses, I found out that I don't know anything. At least that's what I claim. And you've been in this industry John, you've been 30 years in this power. Are you going to claim you know everything?
I don't have a clue.
Okay, so basically we're all learning, okay? And as government regulations come in and programs come in, programs go out, they're changing. Colorado just changed their laws, at least with the public utility. They just changed here due to some politics. So now a lot of the incentives that were in Colorado are no longer as high as they were. So now it's difficult. And that's why we're saying, it's by state and it's by the different utility that you're using. In Missouri, we have 2 major ones, which is KCP&L and Ameren. Ameren is in the St. Louis area. Those utilities run differently because they're private utilities than the public utilities. The public utilities fall under a different statute, and so they don't necessarily have to do the same sort of programs because they're owned by the consumers, or like a co-op. So basically they fall under a different law or statute.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What's the question?
Do you know of any legislation or any states that are renewable efforts?
Yes.
Renewable adverse states.
And let me preface that by saying everyone has their own niche that they have a self-interest in. Like Kansas is for wind, but not for
Solar.
solar. Colorado is for wind and solar. Oklahoma is not for solar, but for wind. There is Wisconsin is for solar and not wind. So it's all about what their public interests are in those areas and what those rebates are. And so you might look at these numbers and say, oh, they got some good incentives, but you have to read the fine print and really understand what the purpose of it. And then what you're able to double dip on.
I'm not sure if double dip is an interesting word.
Yeah, no, okay. What you're able to take advantage of from the same pot of funds. For an example, you're getting 2 incentives from the IRS that normally does not allow that. But under one legislation, they do, so that's why you're allowed to get the 1603 ITC tax grant as a check, and then get the 100% bonus depreciation on the system, even though it's coming from the same IRS. Now, normally under those circumstances, you're not allowed to do that. And so you have to find out what the regulations and things are. The other thing is, I'm only giving you the tip of the iceberg. I haven't talked to you about selling carbon offsets and renewable energy credits yet, which is available to individuals on a state-by-state or area-by-area basis.
Okay. Question.
We've already discussed the fact that I have a lot of power stuff. No, but a lot of these grants, from my experience, not necessarily this area, they do have caps on them sometimes. And so is that also true kind of in this area?
Yes, there are caps.
So
There,
the system could be of such size that you would cap out, make it an attractive program, but not, you're not going to be writing a check, correct?
Well, and for instance,
Still a great deal.
Okay, so you're talking about a cap. For instance, KCP&L, they're going to be taking a look at your average use. Okay, so they basically factor in, they figure out what your average use is, and if you put more photovoltaics on your roof than your average use, you're saying, hey, I'm going to start a power company.
Oh, bad word. Bad word.
Yeah.
Please write this down. Every one of us in this room need to write this down. We are never going to be a power company. We're always going to be a PPA provider. We're going to provide through a power purchase agreement, never a utility. Because once you become a utility, you must meet all those regulations and stipulations. So you're going to provide power through a cell agreement.
Yeah. So going back to that thing, if you want to put more photovoltaics on your roof, maybe you have a barn out back. KCP&L or someone like them basically are just going to they're just going to say whatever your normal usage is. Okay, that's your regular usage. So anything above that, the reimbursement cost for that power is at a different rate, a much reduced rate. Okay, so that's the difficulty of producing too much. It was a good question, thank you
But
very
I
much.
think your question was, how do I get a check? So if you want to understand how you get a check from your utilities, this is what you do. Yes, sir? You had a Oh. How much power? Well, I think my time is up.
No, we're doing okay.
We're doing okay? Okay.
We're doing okay.
How much power do you use? Do you know how much power you use? So you get your last 2 years of energy statements. Then from the last 2 years of energy statements, 40 seconds?
Minutes.
Oh, 40 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, we're doing okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You take your last 2 years of your energy statement. Then from there, when you conduct your energy audit, you're going to save a percentage of your power just through the audit itself.
That was what we're saying, do your personal audit, do your personal inventory, take control of your life when it comes to power. So that's what, take control. And that's what we're talking about, the changing your norms, your paradigms, okay, on how we use.
So if you reduce your power consumption by 20%, how much electricity are they going to allow you to put on?
So you're using the average is 100%, you reduce it, your consumption, so instead of doing your average for the last 2 years, you reduce it by 20%.
Then you put on 100% of renewables, which they allow you to do by law.
Because they have that history, they have the 2-year history, and you put that much PV or whatever you can incentive to that original route, the original amount, even though you're now change your paradigms, change your norms, and you're using 20% less.
Then you install your system, and the way it works in Colorado and is different than other states. Some will cut you a check back at the end of the year in December. Some will cut you a check back if you're over $25. They'll cut you a check back on a monthly basis.
Talk about lock-in.
About what?
Locking in.
Oh, then when you add your renewables through your net metering agreement, that's why you want to have a good, strong PPA, you lock in your utility rates for the next 20 years.
Which means that if the rates go up,
the rates that they buy your electricity from you go up. So you're basically at today's rate till year 2031.
So if you're in the Missouri side of Kansas City and you wanted to do something, are you talking, should they do the solar more than the wind? Or what would that look like?
well, okay, I would just say that there's a variety of things. I mean, we've been talking about what is your power consumption, because your roof could probably only handle so much. Okay, what's it facing? Is it facing, I mean, do you have a south facing, or do you have a big east-west facing, or is it? Well, north isn't going to help you very much. And then when you talk about wind, I mean, you know, do you live in a subdivision?
No, it's on
3 acres.
And-
Okay, so your typical for your wind, if you put up a wind tower, if it falls, it must land, please write this down, y'all. It must land on your property and your property only. So,
I'm just thinking practically, like, if you talk about this, like, what's the next step? I mean, I don't, you know, is it solar, is it wind, who do I talk to? I'm just trying to figure out, like, in a meaningful way,
again,
what do I do?
everyone is going to be different. So I can't give you a bullet point where you need this, 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 and this. It may not fit for you. So every individual circumstance has to be looked at. And then I need to know about your lifestyle. What's your family like? Is it growing? Is it expanding? What do you use? That energy audit tells me everything, because do you want me to sell you something like everybody else? Or do you want me to be a partner with you to make sure that you truly get what you want and need?
Just a consideration, you know, when we talked about, earlier I said, how many of you use accountants or, not accountants, but if you prepare your own taxes or you use somebody else to prepare your taxes. Sometimes the reason you use other people to help you give you an idea of the things to think about and some of the options that are available. In the point of where you are in your family cycle, if you have children that are under, say, 12 years of age, their consumption of power, of energy, is a lot different than if you had children who were basically 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you know, living at home. And then they leave the house, and all of a sudden your energy usage changes. So it depends on where your family is, what your usage, and where you're buying it now. Anyway, there's some considerations.
Did I answer all of the questions?
You know, I just want to apologize. Look, we're not trying to make this difficult, and it's very, you know, from where I stand, it's real difficult to say, this is what you need, or this is what you need without knowing your situation. You know, we were talking about food earlier and listening to the discussions about the food, and they're saying in a normal environment or in this environment or that environment. So everything is a little bit different. And we're not trying to make, and we are presenting a lot of information. So I'm not sure if there's a clear-cut way to say, you need this, and whatever this is. I mean, I could ask the question, how many different kinds of vehicles do we have as far as colors, as far as size of the vehicle? What do you drive? How many people drive cars? How many people drive a four-door, you know, a sedan? How many drive a two-door? It's all different because of who we are as individuals, our lifestyles, our personalities.
But the thing I want you to really take home is this. No one really can design something for you that's going to fit for you without you knowing what you need. So many people buy things and don't know how to use it. How many men, and this is this question for the men, how many men have read your instructions on your remote control and actually know how to use it?
I know how to use it, but I haven't read.
We just start pushing buttons. Well, we don't want to take this investment and make it where you just start pushing buttons. Yes, sir. So that's why we're not being, if it comes across as we're being ambiguous, it's just that I don't know what your needs are. And that's a disservice that people do when it comes to this industry. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to get confused, so I was glad to finish.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
And I'll just make a statement. It's just like if you've ever built your own house, it's different than buying a house. Because if you buy a house, you walk through and say, do I like this or don't? When you build your house, all of a sudden, you're talking to an architect or a designer, and all of a sudden they say, what do you want? And you go, I don't know, build a house that I would like. And they go, well, or design it like I would like. And they go, well, what do you like? I don't know, come over to my house and take a look. And then you tell them what you like, what you don't like. And eventually you end up with a design that works for you, and you move in and you go, this doesn't work for me. I don't know if anybody, has that ever happened to you? This door was too narrow, or By the time you design your second or third house, you're actually doing really good. Anyway,
Yes, sir. Your question?
I know what I'm talking about, right? Okay.
Okay.
It's a good segue, because you answered about real estate and reselling the home, so the questions I have regarding that, for example, if you enter into a PPA provider, I guess, contractual agreement, so if you go to sell, what happens to that agreement?
Okay.
It transfers over through the sales, and that's inside of that PPA agreement.
So basically, the buyer is buying into that agreement.
Correct. And it's being done every single day.
And I'm not sure if everyone caught what the question is, but you basically enter a contractual agreement with the PPA and the power purchase agreement. And so if you want to sell your house, you now have solar on it. That means that the buyer of your house has to take into consideration they're buying it with up on the roof.
But now you're opening up well, I didn't want to go there, but I'm going to give you this information.
Yeah, we may not. I don't know. I just don't want to overwhelm everyone.
But I think he needs to know this.
Okay.
You get what's called a green mortgage. And a green mortgage gives you higher lending limits because you have solar, because solar comes in at about 50%, 60% of the value of the cost of what it puts on. That's the actual appraised value on the house. So that's for the real estate side. Then you get a green mortgage, and a green mortgage gives you 103%, and it gives you a half a point lower because you have renewables. So those are pretty typical things when it comes to real estate. Yes, sir? Sure. The cost of systems vary from area to area, even though the material is the same. So what you pay for in New Jersey is going to have a different dollar cost for the exact same thing in Colorado, which is going to be different than here. So what are your local costs? Traditionally, your local costs get higher as you go further west and hit the further west and east you go, the higher it is.
And that's for installation?
Those are for the install cost. Even material cost goes up. It's the exact same equipment, whether it's a thin film material you get from Troy, Michigan, or a crystalline material you get from Arizona. It's going to be the same material with different costs. So area cost is going to be key. So where are you getting your material from is the key to all of this.
And maybe the question that you're asking is a little bit different, because maybe the question you're asking is, if I have so much usage, kilowatt hours per month, what's it going to cost me to try to get that much? Okay, that's really what you're asking. Did you want to just stay in the photovoltaics, or did you want to also have a generator backup? Have you thought about that? You want generators? Do you want to do photovoltaics and maybe wind? Okay. Do you have a preference if it's just photovoltaics? If you had to choose between photovoltaics and wind, would you rather have photovoltaics or wind? You'd rather have what?
Affordable?
Affordable.
Affordable.
Okay, so let me just sort of recap. You're talking about, okay, you said photovoltaics and maybe wind with a backup generator, enough to handle whatever load you're currently exhibiting. Okay. And how would you price that system?
How will we price it? Do you mind if we use you as an example, sir?
Unless we want to use somebody else. Could we use maybe, I just looked at my bill for last month. Okay. My bill, we used 2,000 kilowatt hours, okay, for my last bill.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you why.
Very good, because it was cold. Okay, so we're running the heater. Okay, so basically it goes into the seasonality of the usage and one of our sons just moved back into the house, and he's a little bit younger than I am, so his water consumption is a lot higher, which means that now he's using more electricity. Okay? So when he's not there, it goes down. Okay? And then our lowest load has been about 800 kilowatt hours.
Okay. And when was that?
That was in October.
October. I'm doing this on the fly.
Okay.
So we haven't talked about this or practiced this. Do you know why it's lowest in October?
Yes, I do. Because that is probably one of the most temperate months here in Missouri as far as consumption. So we're not running the air conditioner, we're not running the heater yet, and we may have the windows open. And because of the way the sun is shining, we're probably not using our lights for an extended period of time during the day.
Okay. What's the orientation of your house?
Our house, basically the roof line basically goes north-south, so we have most of the exposure on east-west.
Okay. Now, any kind of alignment for east-west, you're going to have a little bit higher D rating for energy for photovoltaic generation.
Now, I do have the addition to our house that does have a roof line that has a big southern exposure and has also the northern exposure, but we're not going to use that.
What type of roof?
It's a peak roof, straight across, and it has an inclination of, I don't know the inclination, the pitch.
What's the material?
It's a composition. Composition shingle.
How old?
The composition shingle is within the last 10 years.
Have you had any hail damage recently?
No. On the old roof, hail damage has shown up. And the question is, I know you're asking a lot of questions, but why are these questions germane? The audience is asking.
Because I don't know. I've got to engineer and stamp whatever I put up. This is not some guy who's putting up solar out of the trunk of his car. This is going to be something value added that you're going to be able to use, and then those who come behind you will be able to use. So we're going to design it correctly, so I need to ask the right questions so that I can get a right feel for what it is that you need.
Who takes liability during installation?
The installation company.
If I sell you power, am I taking a liability issue?
Through your PPA, you're under limited liability under the PPA, and that's why it needs to be written strongly. There's limited liability based off of having the NEC code for photovoltaics, making sure that it follows that code. Once you follow that code with the proper engineering stamps and the proper disconnects, you are fine.
I'm going to stop the conversation here for a second. Is this the reason why a lot of people don't go photovoltaic and renewables?
Because engineers charge by the hour.
Now, does it mean that it's impossible? Okay, yes, engineers charge by the hour. Now, and there's a lot of issues to consider because there's liability. You have to put guide wires. You're penetrating the roof at times to put the anchors in as you're working. What kind of material is up there? What are you dealing with? So many people have shied away from these things because when John was talking about the rebates and all those, there's a lot of paperwork to go through. Okay, now let's go to the other side. Is it doable? And can you do it? That's the real question. And your name, sir? Roger, you said, what is the return on investment? Well, basically, if you've ever built a house, Roger, and I was told when we built our first house, they said, we'll see if your marriage lasts, okay? Because there's so many decisions that go into it, okay? Your wife may want a different color carpet walls, etc., and you have to deal with that with the contractor. So anyway, point being that we're not trying to make this difficult. This discussion here today is to give you sort of the wide gamut informative, but also to give you hope that it is doable.
And also to show you the difference between those who say they put up solar and solar professionals. Here's a question that probably none of you will ever hear. What kind of small animals do you have in your neighborhoods?
Squirrels, a lot of squirrels.
Red flag. For those of you who have renewable energy systems, why is that a red flag? Why? Because they're attracted to the DC current. That's why squirrels chew on your DC generated power. They're attracted to it. So I asked that question because I would then sleeve his system so that whatever strings of DC, everything would be sleeved or accounted for so that squirrels won't gnaw on it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Wait. I want to go to the next slide.
We had a question here.
You know, we're going to have questions the whole day. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
May I make a commercial?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to make a commercial? Come on, Reagan, make a commercial.
So these gentlemen, brilliant gentlemen, we have about 10 more minutes with in here formally. Here's my commercial. We actually have, 50 plus products for you to sample right in this room next door, the Hawthorne 2, that are the freeze-dried and dehydrated samples, so that's almost ready. So what I'd encourage you is we'll take 10 more minutes in here formally, and then if you two will join us in the room next door, people can be eating their little samples of freeze-dried food and continuing on the conversation if they will indulge you. If they say no more, please honor them and withhold your questions. So 10 more minutes in here, and then sample time next door. So when we dismiss, head over, gives you a great chance to try the foods, see what you like, see what you don't like, and compare things like freeze-dried and dehydrated side by side so you know what you're getting. Lots to sample, okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay, things to remember. Power, remember we started with the windmills, we started with, all the ancient things, okay? Okay, and we said basically we forgot a lot of that stuff. And we also said that we really like our infrastructures right now. But things to remember, long-term disruption, okay, will affect the ability to revive the infrastructure. If there's a road that's not being driven on, that road is decaying on a daily basis. Either plants are growing or snow, ice, the contraction and expansion, that's happening. So your infrastructure, the longer that the infrastructure is down, the more difficult it is going to be to revive that and get it using again. So why is that important? It's just things to remember in the infrastructure. Okay, the infrastructure of everything that we have, whether it's power distribution that may go out, water distribution, gas distribution, any one of those. Okay. Cooperation with neighbors, I want you to get the idea that cooperation with your neighbors is going to be a necessity. Yes, we're talking about on-grid, off-grid. I'm going to tell you this. I believe that our grid is the people we know. Is our friends, our relatives, maybe the believers. That's your new grid. So we're talking about a mindset, okay? We're talking about norms. And we're talking about maybe getting off the grid, or what happens if the grid, you have a new grid. And let's think in those terms. What is that new grid? Therefore, live close to people you trust, or in a good neighborhood or with a good neighbor, someplace. I mean, live close to people that you can work with. Start associations with these people. Start working on projects today. Start working on them. Just get this network going. And then the third point up there on things to remember is think ahead and change your lifestyle now while the infrastructure that we currently have is active and you can use it to buy products or to implement the products or to get them manufactured. So think ahead, use your existing infrastructure to get products to you easily. Next slide. David is back there. Raise your hand. Okay, so again, do it again, David. Raise your hand again. There you go. Okay. So he's there. I'm Edward. This is John Hall, and we thank you very much. We're going to go eat your goodies, right? Let's go eat some power goodies. Any last words?
The last word, and I know I didn't answer all the questions, and there's so many out there to answer. But at least now you have an idea of what questions to start asking and to think about the things that you normally don't think about. And we are here to help. And if there's anything that we can do, please don't hesitate to call. We thank you for having us here.